All right, well, good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're Zooming in from. Thanks for joining us here today for our 6.2 new feature release here at Style3D. I'm going to give everyone just a couple more minutes to filter in here. I see the participants are adding up there. So again, thank you so much for joining us. We're super excited to be sharing these new features with you. So how we're going to do things today is, well, I guess I should first introduce myself. My name is Dan Snyder. I am the US Business Development Manager here for Style3D, based here in the US. I'm also joined by my counterpart, Matt Bakum. He is our very talented solutions expert, and he's going to be leading the technical portion of the demo. He is the technical wizard. So how we're going to do things today is we're going to go through the version 6.2 features release. Lots of great new exciting features in there, some bigger, bigger announcements and some minor things. We really focus this time on making, your workflow a lot easier and adding some features that are going to make, like I said, things just a lot easier for you as you go into your design development and product development process. So again, we're just going to wait a couple more minutes here. And then with that, I'm going to pass things off to Matt here in a few minutes. And what we'll do is go through everything. And at the end, of course, we'll leave a healthy portion for questions and answers. Again, this is being recorded. So if you're watching this after the fact, it's been made available for you to watch. And you can find this on things like our LinkedIn or possibly our YouTube as well. So I'll give everyone a few more minutes. We're at 46 people. Let's see if we can get to 50 before we start. And then we will get things started. So again, feel free to put questions in the Q&A in the chat area, and we will get to those at the end. So, okay, with that, Matt, why don't we go ahead and get started? And I will monitor the chat and we will go from there.
Sure. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, what we're going to do is go over, like you said, some of the major and not so major new improvements for version 6.2. I'll just say the development team has been turning out updates very quickly, which is why you see webinars coming every month or month and a half. So we have a lot to share, and we'll get into it pretty quickly. So I'm going to jump right into the broad categories of what we're going to be talking about. We have some updates to our iWish capabilities. iWish, of course, being our generative AI functionality, including the face swap, if you watched the last webinar, or the AI content generation, which would be generating new content from text descriptions. We have new features relating to our avatars, how they're used, how they're measured, and a new exciting feature related to avatars that I'll save for the slide. New 2D and 3D tools, adjustments to the way that we work in 2D and 3D, new interactions for the interface to make them a little bit more streamlined. There's been a major kind of effort behind the scenes to continually improve the user interactions for actually getting to tools and finding tools and even the names of tools. That's an update you'll see coming up. You'll see some of the names and descriptions for tools getting updated in coming updates. We also have new rendering updates. You saw in the 6.1 webinar, our new ray tracing, real-time ray tracing capabilities. We further improved upon those in this latest edition. Starting with iWish, again, the generative AI capabilities. Here we've got new additions to the way that the Gen AI is created. Here, I'm just going to pause this on the left so you can focus on the right. Sorry, on the left here. And what we have here is a rendering scene prepared for output. What we do here is we can create outputs through our rendering dialog like we would normally do. And here we have the ability to generate what's called an AI snapshot. Again, if you saw the last webinar, you've seen this process. We can also share more videos on exactly what's happening here. But what we've done is we're taking an image the way that we've framed it, and we're uploading it to the AI snapshot tool. At this point, what we're able to do is choose an avatar or a face of our choosing. That can be your image, a photograph that you've uploaded of yourself or of any other person, digital models that are preloaded into our library, or even the predefined AI-based humans or AI-generated human faces that we can use for face swapping. The purpose of that is to give you faces to kind of blend between the avatar's face and the face selected in the photograph. We now also have this tool called clothing refinement in public beta. What that does is not only does it apply the AI upgrade here to the face, but it also improves the visual of the garment, the fit of the garment overall. Before, it didn't touch the garment at all. Now the garment is also included in what's happening, what's being improved by the AI. And all you have to do once you've sent that job is you can open up the job inside of Style3D Cloud. In the Design Center, you have AI tools. And in there, you can see any jobs that you've created. And you can see actually, this is a preview of the image that we've created from the image. You can see this is a very high quality, again, photorealistic type view. This is not, strictly speaking, a render, right? Because we've already got the render part created. What we're now doing is uploading and further refining and augmenting through AI the image that was created to make it even more photorealistic. So that's a great new exciting feature. I believe this is talking a little bit more about the AI clothing refinement, which we just went over here. You can see that also the garment was improved upon. So before, again, just the faces get modified. Now the AI also touches the garment. For avatars, there's a lot to talk about here. One of the biggest new improvements that we have here are soft body avatars. And in fact, this is our main female avatar, Nana. And what Nana now has is the ability to simulate with soft tissue. This is a huge improvement for anyone who's really concerned about fit and being able to realistically and accurately fit garments that are tight-fitting or that are form-shaping. And the purpose of this is to be able to, again, set different values for the body, for the body's deformation. And here you can see you can click and drag and make actual movements to the avatar during this, where we're just simulating no garments. But you're also going to see this when you simulate a garment that's too tight. You'll actually see the garment constrain the body. If you're working with swimsuits, if you're working with intimates, any time where the fit is really, really important, you need this. The alternative is the way that everyone else is working. Everyone else's avatars are pretty much concrete. When you're fitting on an avatar, it doesn't react to the garment, doesn't react to the pressure at all. This does. So this is a super exciting set of features, specifically for fitting and also for the visual realism of what's going on in simulation and animation. So if you do animations, you'll also notice that the skin and body tissue are moving much more realistically. These are, of course, excuse me. There are parameters here that you can adjust to modify how reactive the body is to motion, so that you can fit whatever type of scenario you're going for. Here we have new controls for animations. So previously, when you posed avatars, either using AI-generated poses, which could be any pose, sometimes the position of hands may not have moved, or maybe you've made a movement to the hip, but you haven't made a change to the arm. Now we've got new range of motion controls for the direction and position of the arm and for the legs, so that you can more easily adjust using a slider where that hand is for a more natural placement, where sometimes manually moving these using the rigging can be difficult. So this is a quality of life improvement to help with that process of posing arms and hands so that they're not colliding through the body. We have new measurement controls for the avatars as well. Now you can turn on and off individual measurement controls. If you find that the default view that we have for our avatar measurements is too busy or includes measures that are not relevant to your type of fit, you can remove those. You can hide them entirely. And you can see their dimensions right here in the scene editor as well. We also now have the ability to group measures inside of the scene editor. So now you can select multiple groups and create, multiple measures and create an avatar measurement group out of those two. And you can hide and show those measurements based on a group there. We also now have symmetrical measurements for measurements that occur on obviously both sides of the body. Now you can create measures that are visible on both sides of the avatar. And new techniques for using 2D and 3D tools. Another major exciting feature here is the ability to have accessories participate in the simulation. Previously, and pretty much with every other simulation system, when you add an accessory, it's kind of fixed in place. It doesn't behave like an accessory. It doesn't participate in the simulation like any other part of the garment does. It doesn't usually have weight, doesn't really move. In this case, we've turned accessories into simulatable objects with mass and have the ability to move. So when you actually do a simulation, you can see that the this loop here actually is a part of the simulation. It is actually fastening these pieces together. And when you move the pattern, the accessory moves along with it, impacting the rest of the simulation. This is a big improvement for anyone who's using accessories, loops. If you're in bags and you have lots of this type of accessory, it's a major improvement to be able to include these accessories in the simulation. So we're excited to be announcing that one. Internal line repeats. We have the normal ability to just copy and paste an internal pattern. And right now we have this pattern shape that we want to repeat through not only this piece, but the piece that it's going to match up to. Excuse me, let me go back. And what we can do here is we can copy. Normally we can just copy and paste and kind of clone stamp more or less wherever we want this selection of two lines to be. However, sometimes we want to be a little bit more precise, or maybe we want to kind of repeat this pattern throughout the entire garment. So what we'll do is we'll choose the new repeat option, and we can tile that repeat throughout the pattern automatically, and we can choose the spacing of the step so that the lines match up exactly as we would like to. And it will populate those lines throughout not only the pattern that we created, but we can also reduplicate that in other pieces using the same set of rules. If you've tried doing this without this type of tool, you'll know this is the kind of task that would normally take you kind of an unnecessary amount of effort and time. Here, we've simplified that into a single tool. And here we're just creating, I believe this is to make it a puffy garment. So we've taken a flat garment, we've added the little pouches where we're going to have interior fill. We've created duplicate layers of those, and now you can see how that fiber fill is actually applying to the pattern. Sorry, I skipped ahead here. Those of you who work with leather goods, we now have the ability to simulate oiled edges of pieces. So now you have the ability not only to dictate the color and shape of edges, but you can also have them appear as oiled edges for your leather products. You can set the thickness and you can set the material type here like you would. It's pretty much any other accessory. This is another detail refinement. And this is kind of a continuing theme within Style3D's improvements. We've got a lot of the basics done, right? Our simulation's very fast. Our avatars are really good. We even now have soft body avatars. We even have AI. Really, the only place to take it from here is to continually improve the realism and the quality of different types of garments. And now we can, or products. So now we're representing an even broader cross-section of the available cut and sewn goods that can be created here. We have a new tool for creating spiral pieces. This has been a long awaited request. Those of you who like creating spirals for ruffled pieces, we have a new tool to allow you to do that. What's nice about this is as you're working, you actually get a preview as you make adjustments. So you can see before committing to your adjustment or to your new piece, what you've actually done. The major benefit there is it's very easy to accidentally choose values that are either not physically possible, where part of the spiral kind of completely crosses over itself and it'd be impossible to cut. Being able to see a preview of that while you're working in the Create Spiral tool saves you a bunch of time. You can see it ahead of time. And once you're happy with that shape, you can say, okay, and you've committed and you can create a new piece. Pretty nice. We've made improvements to the way that folds will look now. We have a tool called Realistic Folding, or a checkbox now called Realistic Folding. And you can see here on the left what it looked like before this improvement. Anytime there was a fold, you could see the effect of artifacts here. What's happening is there are triangles that are the base shape of this pattern, and those triangles may not line up perfectly with the edge of a fold. In the new version that's been corrected, we actually now have cleaned up the way that these folds look. You can actually create what is a proper crease or a fold along an edge. Oops, keep clicking through that. You can see you can just turn that on or off. And that smooths out both the creases, creased folds and folds that just need a rounded edge. We have new tools. These are new right-click menu options for being able to convert buttons to and from buttons to buttonholes. If you've created a pattern like this where you have a collar stand, you may have started it with it mirrored or set to half. And when you create a button and you open it up, you have another button there. This now allows you to just right-click on one of those sides and consider the other side the buttonhole, so that when you're doing a simulation, you can more easily select button and connect it or attach it to the buttonhole. You can just right-click now to assign those properties. Very simple. We have new graphic techniques that we can apply to graphics or logos. There are already a library of these that live within Style3D. We've extended this library even further. We now have a brushed material preset. We have a foam preset. And a high frequency embroidery preset, or can also be used for corduroy as well. These are just presets to apply a visual texture, some depth to logos that are being applied on top of your fabric. You, of course, have the ability to do this to your fabrics as well, but this is specifically an art technique that you can apply to images. These, by the way, if you haven't played with these inside of Studio, I'd encourage you to look through these. There's a bunch more that had already been there, including foil and digital print. So if you're trying to kind of visualize a specific type of graphic, being able to play with the artwork technology will allow you to visualize a little bit more clearly what it is you're going for. Another big improvement here, this is a little bit maybe more technical for users who are who are going to be exporting this to computer graphics workflows, or for those of you who are trying to improve the performance of your simulation. Normally, what you can do here is you see that this polygon count relates to the density, the level of detail in this product. In this case, you can see that the polygon triangles here are quite a bit larger than they are up here in the waistband. And the reason for that is that the waistband requires much more detail. In order to show this much smocking, we would need to be able to see quite a bit more detail than you would need to here. This new tool allows you to locally adjust the particle distance. Again, I don't want to bore you all here. What that means is you can change through a paintbrush the density of these polygons. If you find that you have this is great for if you have a large piece where there's a specific area that you need to see detail, and you don't want to necessarily change the entire piece to have a very small polygon count, because that could slow your simulation down. The alternative now is to be able to just paint specifically where you want new detail to be shown, and you have a shape brush that allows you to do that. And you can choose what effect you want it to have. In this case, it's going to subdivide the area that's painted specifically in the area that we've chosen, either in the 2D or in the 3D. We find it's easier to make selections in 2D because we are working on the pattern. And you can see immediately, as soon as we paint in those, the polygon count there has been increased. And that means that our simulations will be a little more accurate. And you can see the way that this works. We've actually gained a little bit of detail in the wrinkling where the pant legs, the short legs meet the waistband. And this is the benefit. If you've ever heard me talk about polygon counts and quality before, this is why. When you increase your mesh density, or you increase the number of triangles that are here, you can see more detail. That does tend to come at the expense of speed. So if you're working with large pieces and you don't need it throughout the entire large piece, you can make that selection much more efficient through this type of process. So another exciting feature in our toolkit here. We've made some changes to the way the interface works. Here now we have the ability to lock individual patterns, and that prevents them from being selected. The way we're going to do this is just by right-clicking on an individual piece, and you can see now when we highlight all of those pieces, the piece that was locked is no longer part of it. In fact, it's grayed out slightly, so you can no longer select it within that area. I can unlock all patterns through the right-click menu as well if I need to, but this is a nice quality of life improvement. If you like stacking pieces on top of one another and you are either trying to trace a shape from one piece to another, this is an excellent way to prevent changes to the piece that is your template. You can lock your template piece, overlay an entirely new piece, and start drafting with the draw tool or using your trace features. And that would mean that you would never you'd never fear that you accidentally edited your pattern because your template pattern, because that pattern's locked. That would mean that you know exactly what you're working on in this case. So those of you working with patterns, doing pattern edits, this is a big improvement for you all. We have new tools for the way that pieces are aligned within the 2D and 3D workspace. Normally, you have the ability to spread pieces out, and it is a little bit of time, very short amount of time usually, to arrange pieces in a way that you like them for working normally in 2D and 3D. But now you have alignment tools similar to what you'd see in PowerPoint or other tools where you have lots of graphics that need to be centered inside of a space. Now you can align them all by top, and you can see now that when you do that, the tops of those pieces all match that top line, match at that top line. You could also choose align left or right, and or center, and they'll all converge on that location. You probably wouldn't do this for all of your pieces, but if you have waistband pieces, you could select all of those and distribute those using an alignment tool. So this is one example where we've selected everything. Obviously, you may not necessarily want to stack everything on top of each other, but if you're trying to quickly arrange a group of pieces, you can select those and use the alignment tools to distribute those in your workspace in a more reasonable way. You now have the ability to search through the fabric library in a more streamlined manner. We've added these filter options inside of the resource library fabric tab. Right now, before you could only search by name or by type, and now you can filter specific types of materials, their material makeup, or even by weight. And you can, I believe, also set a custom threshold for the weight. Yes, you can. Okay. You may have already seen this in a couple of the other edits, but we've made adjustments to the right-click menus. These dialog options before were just one big list. We've separated them to make them easier, to make tools easier to find, and group them in a way that makes a little bit more sense. Again, in upcoming versions, you will see changes to the way that these tools are named for clarity. So a number of big improvements to make your life a little bit easier working in Studio. The object browser has also seen some improvements. We now have the ability to show and hide individual pieces through this pattern unused feature that allows you to completely disable and remove a simulation from a piece from the simulation. So you can hide it and completely deactivate it in one step. You can see that enables both options. And you also have the ability to hide and show individual pieces from within the scene browser as well. I don't know if anyone works with the component styles in Style3D, where you can create a garment that is, let's say, a shirt with 3 different sleeve options or different pocket options. But freezing and hiding individual pieces is very useful in those scenarios. So having a streamlined method for being able to deactivate and reactivate individual pieces and kind of eliminate them from the simulation entirely can be really useful, because you may simulate one version of it, like it, keep that unused but ready for rendering later on, and then continue to simulate your other options, your different sleeve options or pockets or whatever you have. There's new optimizations for move to in 3D as well. What you have here on the left-hand side is the old method. And the old method would be selecting a piece and kind of indicating where on the body you want this piece to go. And it's okay, right? It's easy to get a piece kind of in the vicinity where you want, but you can see here that it's colliding with the avatar. And the reason it's done that is that it's made the piece, it's still flat, right? So it's still either would be some number of inches away or some distance away from or offset from the body, which may be its own problem, or it's inset and it's actually colliding through the body. We actually have a pretty elegant solution to that on the right-hand side. On the right, you can see we have the ability not only to place pieces as we were doing before, but watch that yellow line as it slides over. You're actually hovering over a surface that's kind of an invisible surface that's slightly offset from the body. This means that when you're placing pieces like sleeves, which you can see below, or even a front bodice piece, the placement is a little bit easier because you're placing it where you would expect it to, kind of front and center. But the system is automatically shaping that piece in 3D prior to your simulation. So you're actually getting the influence of the body shape that's going on so that it pre-curves those pieces. This is a big improvement to being able to place complex pieces around the body, or complex arrangements of pieces around the body. If you have 2 or 3 pieces that need to fit on an arm, you can select those pieces and hover them on the arm, and they will wrap around the arm without colliding through. I would encourage you to give this tool some practice to understand how this works. It is an extremely useful tool for what was already a pretty quick process. Now we can make this even easier to just point and click where you want the pieces around the body without so much manual manipulation and moving in order to get the piece where it needs to be for simulation to happen. Okay. We have new guideline tools. Now we have the ability to create guidelines from a right-click menu at a point that we've chosen. So we can actually just right-click on a point and create guideline. And we're using right now the edit pattern tool. And just we zoom through this demo here. But you can see you can right-click on a guideline and create X or Y guidelines. You can create tangential guidelines that are tangent to the curve that you've selected. Or you can create offset guidelines. Again, these are useful for pattern editors. Anytime where you need to do draft work, or if you're making adjustments based on a template pattern, being able to use guidelines as a reference, which are also snappable objects so that you can click and select those lines, is very useful. We also have the ability now to just show the edge length and ruler. We've had these features before, but now you can actually drag a guideline right out of the ruler. Super, super useful here, being able to create guidelines that are given distances apart from one another. This means that not only can you edit existing patterns with ease, this would be a great method for drafting whole new patterns from scratch. You can create a template pattern that has these guidelines already developed for major points of measure, and either trace or build or draft pieces using these reference lines. I'm a big fan of guidelines like this. So again, I would encourage anyone who's using the system to play with this tool. It's very useful. We've seen improvements to our rendering capabilities. In 6.1, we announced the real-time ray tracing rendering capability, which is available for those of you who have RTX NVIDIA graphics cards. Those are among the higher-end graphic cards. The benefit to using those cards is that you can use this real-time ray tracing. If you don't have that, you still do have very high-quality offline rendering, but these updates relate specifically to the ray tracing. In the previous version, it would be possible for you to create a result like what you see here in this old column where the visual is washed out. And this could be due to just improperly setting the lighting or choosing the wrong settings for the rendering. What we now have are presets for a broader range of rendering scenarios to allow you to more easily get to the type of rendering that you see here on the right, which is a much more clearer, higher definition visual where the colors are not washed out, and the visuals are much closer to what your digitized material really was. This also comes with a performance improvement. This means that your system, those of you who do have this graphic card, will utilize less video memory in order to create these renders. So there is less load on your computer hardware for those of you who are using this. And it also improves stability for those of you who are on the lower end of the specification list. If you have an older RTX card like myself, then this will come with a performance improvement and a stability improvement for you. Those of you with brand new RTX cards, I'm envious, but this will likely impact you less. We've added new features like the ability to have self-illuminating materials, like what you see here on the right-hand side. These are materials, these are pieces that live within our 3D environment that have an luminance value applied to them, and you can actually change their colors. These are great for flashy visuals, for metaverse imagery, or really any imagery that requires a self-illuminating component. Even for safety gear where you have reflective components, being able to visualize that is very easy when you have this capability where you can say these pieces light up. They also make for really cool looking renders. I like this tool. There are a number of other optimizations that have come with the system. Now, when we import DXF files, it will be able to interpret and import seam allowance data and convert them into Style3D seams. Previously, when we imported DXF files, we stripped any seam allowance values for clarity, but we're seeing more and more features that relate to being able to properly edit the 2D pattern, including seam allowance, and this now is one major step towards that, being able to import DXF patterns that include seam allowance as seam allowance inside of our system. So those of you who are working with production patterns, this is a big win for you. We have a new improvement to the way that our freeze tool works. The way that this worked in the past, whenever you froze a piece, and I talked to you a little bit briefly about polygon count and polygon size, I'll say this. In the past, if you had a piece that was simulated at very high quality, and let's say you let it go as long as you needed it to go, maybe it was 5 minutes for that simulation to occur just based on the quality that you chose, the amount of visual quality that you're trying to kind of tease out of this image. You may do that for an individual component and then freeze it so that you have perfect control over every component's appearance prior to exporting it or putting it out in a render. Before, if you were to, let's say you had a very high polygon count up in the tens of thousands, and you wanted to reduce that to the thousands, just to reduce the polygon, to reduce the load on an external application. Let's say you need to reduce the number of triangles that this dress is made up of. You may want to reduce the number of polygons. You may choose to say, hey, I don't want 10,000 triangles. I want 1,000 triangles to define this. Previously, when you did that, it would kind of alter the simulation. It would mean that, like here, like you see in the top row, the third image there, you can reduce the polygon count, but this would come with artifacts that would kind of deform the shape of the pattern in 3D. Now, when you freeze a pattern, even if you start at a very high resolution or polygon count, you can freeze a piece, reduce its polygon count, and it will not impact the shape of the existing patterns as they exist on the 3D workspace. Again, this is a big improvement for those of you who are trying to do rendering or exporting to third-party applications for modeling or animation. This is a big improvement. This means you can control the number of polygons without deforming the shape of your patterns. It also means that those of you who are working with complex garments, when you're simulating, can simulate a complex component, freeze it, reduce the polygon count so that it reduces the computational load on your computer while continuing to add and get very high quality visuals. So we're happy to expand on this more if this is a workflow that you're interested in. But yeah, we can definitely show you more clearly how this feature works if there's any interest. That brings us to the end of the presentation, the demo for us today. I will pass it back to Dan, and we'll open it up to Q&A. Yeah, Dan, please take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. That was great to see all the new features, and we hope that you're very excited about those. I have been answering some questions along the way as Matt has been presenting. So please feel free to filter in some more questions. Matt, we do have one question from Andres, and it's specifically in regards to the oiled edge feature. He's asking if that specifically improves the way that the fabric is going to be joined or glued, or is it going to be necessary to always sew the two objects together? It's my understanding that that's just a visual feature and it's not changing anything. You still would need to stitch those two pattern pieces together and then just apply that visual element. Is that correct, Matt? Oh, you're on mute, Matt.
Thank you. Yes, that's exactly right. The distinction there is it's more similar if you've ever used our piping features, where you're saying, I have a piece here and it needs to have a specific piping edge assigned to it. We already have that feature that's been in Style3D for quite a long time, and we have a library of shapes that were applied. It's basically the same feature, but with a shape that more closely aligns to the shape of an oiled edge on leather. I don't believe it has any impact on how you assemble the pieces together, like you mentioned, Dan. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. So, doesn't seem to be that many questions, so I'm going to leave a few more minutes just in case. Oh, there we go. So Laura is asking a question, Matt. She would like to know more about the last feature, and she's working with UE5, and she thinks this would be very helpful. I don't know if there's anything we can expand upon. I'm assuming she's talking about the skirt slide.
Yeah, so let me go back. So for this, yes. For those of you who are worrying about polygon counts when you're exporting to UEE, this is very helpful. This means, again, you can start at a high mesh density, simulate, keep that piece frozen at whatever quality it was, and then reduce the polygon count prior to exporting to another system. Now, I'm not sure exactly what happens once it's received by that other system, but when you're working in Style3D Studio, it doesn't alter the shape. I believe that's true of exported assets as well. What you export also doesn't get impacted by the particle distance change that applies in that's been made here. If there's a deeper question there, we're happy to engage our R&D team to kind of express a little bit more clearly. If you have a question specifically about exporting to UE, please ask that question and we'll make sure we talk to R&D to get a really good answer for you. I do see a question here from Thierry. Hi, Thierry. How are you? AI for poses. Yes, you absolutely can. Thierry, you're asking whether or not you can just save poses and reuse it. Absolutely. What we're mentioning here is that you can actually use a photograph of a person and our AI tool will automatically repose the avatar based on the pose in the photograph. I believe I have a video of that. Let me see if I can pull it up for you. But the purpose of that specific feature is have a person in a pose, apply that pose to an avatar in Style3D Studio. The reason, the way that we can do that is that the avatars are already rigged for animation. You have the controls for posing and animating inside of Studio. This allows you to kind of more easily automatically do that rather than having a user who may not be used to the process of rigging and posing, get much closer to a finished pose through just a photo. Yeah. I hope that answers, Thierry.
Yeah, Matt, and I did also share with them the recording of the last webinar, which focuses a little bit more on some of those features. So I would, again, also urge everyone to go to our YouTube channel. We do have a recording of the version 6.1 to whatever it was that showcases those particular features. So some of those things that we did mention will be showcased in that as well. Andres is asking about dart rotation. Is this going to be coming soon? And the answer is yes. We are working on some more robust 2D tools. So we will obviously announce those as they're coming out, but we are working on that. And if there are any other suggestions or things that you guys as users are missing, please let us know and we can send that to our R&D team.
Yes, pattern purists, please send us your feedback. You can see, especially based on those two tools that I mentioned earlier, being able to do guidelines and further improvements to the 2D edits, dealing with seam allowance that comes from DXF files. We hear your requests for further pattern editing tools. This has been primarily a design tool, but we're pretty good at the design part now. We would like to expand upon that, and we find there's a good opportunity to improve upon 2D tools, Dart, pleat tools. I believe there's already some new pleat tools coming up in an upcoming test version that I can't share with anyone yet, but keep your ears peeled for the 6.3 or 6.4 webinars, as I'm certain we will have more for you in those as well.
So again, Andres is asking about some other changes to the pleat tools and pattern moves. And again, those are things that we are actively working on, like Matt was just saying. Matt, if you would go to the last slide just to showcase our emails.
Yes.
You know, please feel free to reach out to Matt and I directly. There on the screen, you see both of our emails. You can feel free to send questions or suggestions or anything of that nature to us so that you know, we can, again, share those directly with our R&D team and obviously update you more directly as things come around. So again, take a moment to copy down those emails and feel free to reach out to us directly. We do have one question. Are there future plans to integrate AI for generating actual patterns based on 2D fashion sketches or photos? The answer is yes, sort of. I think this is something that everyone in the industry is trying to quickly go towards. So it has been of some discussion. I'll let Matt answer any other technical side of that.
Yeah, I would say, I'll be frank, I don't think anyone in the market's really even close to doing this. In that question, there's a lot, right? How do we take the knowledge of pattern makers and convert that into AI? I don't think anyone's there yet. I do think that we are the closest to it. I think we have a very, very good development team. Our R&D team is second to none. They're constantly, and again, just keep note of like the release schedule for these updates and the number of improvements that come to these updates. We released the AI feature, I believe, in November or December of last year. It's already seen huge improvements. We've seen in that time 2 or 3 minor releases that include little things like soft body avatars that have been released in that period of time. I believe that we are the closest to that. It is an aspiration of ours to be able to link those two workflows. And I personally believe that whoever does that first is at a major advantage to be able to convert decisions that are made into pattern edits that can be utilized or leveraged for manufacturing. I will have to say, we are not there yet, but neither is anyone else. I do want to say that it is a major aspiration of ours. And without committing anything directly, I'd say, again, keep watching out for these webinars, specifically for major version releases. Yeah, watch the space.
Very nicely said, Matt.
Thank you.
So I don't see any more open questions. Like I said, I have been answering some of you guys more direct. Again, please copy down our emails. Feel free to reach out to us directly if there is something we haven't answered. We are happy to schedule, mini demos to go over any kind of thing in particular that we may not have covered. We have a question from Julian. So regarding the soft body avatars, how do you measure, calculate how this translates from real life? So
Yeah,
that is
so
a
right now
great
there's
question.
yeah,
Go ahead,
so
Ben.
there's a lot to digitizing actual bodies and how you get to decide what parts of the body react by how much, right? Right now that's controlled via a slider. There is no like testing methodology that we can hand out to individuals to say, here's a testing gun, right, that allows you to measure parts of the body for its deformability. Right now we have this kind of a broad, take a slider and slide it up or slide it down based on the type of movement that you're going for, or for the type of body deformation that you're going for. This is just version 1 of this feature. Just like with everything else that we released, we will see iterative changes and improvements to that functionality. I don't have a specific answer for how you as an individual could digitize a person sitting next to you and get it into the system with 100% accuracy. But this is the kind of thing that we'll have for you in future updates. Yeah. Julian, for the next webinar, if you're here, I will try to pull an answer for you so that we can more clearly answer that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And as we've mentioned, we have a very robust scientific and research and development team behind all of this. So they are constantly providing new updates and new science behind how we are doing all of these magical things that we're doing. Like Matt said, continue to watch out for these webinars. We will continue to answer these questions in more detail and provide you with the newest updates that we have coming out. One question from Andres, basically asking, can we place more than one avatar in the system when it's possible?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, which is possible?
They said specifically, we need to place more than one avatar. When will it be possible? I think that they mean like in studio having side-by-side avatars.
Yeah, it's been possible for as long as I've been with the company. So that's it's possible. You can definitely do that. You can import multiple avatars into the scene. If your purpose is trying to visualize multiple sizes of the same garment on multiple sizes or corresponding sizes of the avatar, you can do that now. We have a feature called the garment browser, and that allows you to show side-by-side views, a comparative view of every size of your garment on the corresponding size of the avatar. You can also do that with colorways. If you have 5 or 6 different colorways, you can view them all in that comparative view directly within Studio without having to put both avatars in the scene. That tends to be a workaround for that workflow that I just explained. If you do need 2 avatars or multiple avatars in the scene when you're simulating, you can do that. That is a possibility now. We think of Style3D Studio as like a full 3D modeling application that's been purpose built specific for apparel. So all of the things that you would expect to see inside of a typical modeling application, you have broad access to those things, including coloring materials, recoloring every asset that you have in front of you, rigging, animation, rendering, all of those capabilities that are typically thought of as being 3D modeling tools. Those are in Studio. That they've been simplified so that anybody with any background can access them. Yeah. If you want an example of that, please let us know and we can share that.
And I know I've been sharing this with you guys individually, but please take a moment to also check out our YouTube channel. We have tons of tutorials and lots of information on things that we may not have covered here in the webinar for this specific version release. But again, please feel free to check that out. We have lots of tutorials from basics of getting started into things like animation and all those other things. And again, if there's something that you need more specific detail about, feel free to reach out to one of us and we can go ahead and answer that. So we are kind of coming to the end of the hour, so I'll give it a few more minutes. If anyone has any last minute questions, please feel free to shoot them in the Q&A section. And I'll give you guys a couple of minutes for that.
One last question came in.
One question, is there any certificate program? So as of right now, we do not have a US-based certificate program. I know that there may be programs based in the APAC region and possibly in Europe, but as of right now, we do not have one. It's something that we are actively working on. Again, there's a lot of information on the YouTube channel, and what I would urge you to is to reach out to us through our website, and whether whichever region you're in, someone will reach out to you and will be able to help you answer those specific questions if there is a certificate or university program that you can learn a little bit more about that.
Okay. I think that was all of them.
All right. So I think that answers everyone's questions. Thank you, Matt, and thank you again, everyone, for coming today. Like I said, email us if there's any specific questions. This recording will become available later in the week, and I'm sure you'll see it on our YouTube channel. Keep an eye out for your emails to get a copy of the recording. And thank you again for everyone for joining us today. And we hope to see you in our next webinar.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, thank you everyone. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.